Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The draft is over. It's time to turn our attention to free agency. What's coming next? We'll tell you.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always going to be free. It is never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go and hang out with nearly 18,000 subscribers to the channel, this ever-growing thing. A bunch of people all getting together, leaving comments, talking to us, talking to each other, and really becoming part of the show. Because every day, whether or not we reference a listener, a viewer specifically in the show, we are always looking at those pages to get a feel for what you guys are saying, what you're thinking. But we do like it when you leave us questions or comments that we can use directly and give you some love on the program. So yeah, Andy, lots to look forward to today because free agency is now the next big thing. The draft is done. If you haven't seen it, go back and look at our scouting report episode that we did with Mike Garcia from Monday, breaking down all the new players for the Lakers, the drafted guys and the two-way guys that they brought in, plus their Exhibit 10. We didn't even stop, Andy. We even did Exhibit 10.
Well, he was one of Mike's guys. So the fact that they brought in Alex Fudge, that we knew, if nothing else, we wanted to make sure to give Mike the love and the credit that he was somebody that he was zeroing in for the Lakers, and the Lakers were apparently on the same wavelength. We also are going to be looking sometime this week to bring in Jacob Rude. A lot of you probably know his work from Silver Screen and Roll. He also hosts Locked On Hoosiers for the network, and because of that,
which is, by the way, the strangest overlap I think in anybody working in sports media. My two beats are Indiana and the Lakers.
Yeah, it is.
Works out well for us, though.
I mean, well, it's thematic with the way the Lakers and Pacers have been linked together for the last couple of years. So
yeah, but not Indiana, but Indiana.
No, I know.
College.
No, I get it. It's sort of the JV league of the Pacers with the big boy Lakers. But either way, we're looking to have Jacob on sometime this week because he watched Jalen Hood-Schifino game in, game out, and we'll have a lot of thoughts on JHS and also just what the Lakers should be looking to do in general.
So, well, that's something to look forward to for the everydayers and the most of the dayers as well. But as you can see, we got a lot of guys. It's funny. Both of us subscribe to Mark Stein's Substack. If you haven't, you really should. It's a great newsletter. Tons of great information. Mark is not a flamethrower. He is a guy with great information and an excellent writer, which is also a nice touch. And so I'm getting the newsletter. I know you get it, Andy, all the time. And what's funny about it so far is we all turn our attention post-draft to the free agency period. So Lakers really haven't been involved in any of these columns. And I think we all understand it doesn't take much to get the Lakers to be part of a rumor, to even be sort of tangentially related to something, a coda on some sort of trade rumor or potential free agent destination. It doesn't take much.
No, they are the most Photoshopped team in all of sports. There's yes. No question. Like if the Lakers, for whatever reason, cease to exist, Photoshop might go under. They're 75% of the use of Photoshop is just putting different players
in Lakers jerseys.
Yeah. To the best of my knowledge, it's the only reason the actual app exists.
I'm at this point, I'm fairly concerned. I'm fairly convinced that these guys all actually do, just at their own media days, take pictures in a Lakers jersey, just for expedience sake. But they're not there, and it is really interesting to see. And so, what that tells me, at least when I look at this, is that for the time being, nobody expects the Lakers to be in on Kyrie Irving and do that thing. I think the Lakers have kind of put that speculation to bed. I don't think anybody's expecting them to do the tear down to try to open up space for free agent X, Y, or Z.
Well, it doesn't help in terms of keeping the rumor mill spinning at maximum speed that the Lakers, everybody cannot create maximum cap space. Like, it's impossible for them to actually, even if they clear the decks of everyone who isn't LeBron or AD, they still can't do it because of LeBron and AD.
Right. That $47 million figure or something like that would be a Kyrie's max. They can't get there.
So that combined with the fact that it's a pretty weak free agent class to begin with, you're still going to see people linked to the Lakers. Like, I have seen Draymond Green in a Photoshopped Laker jersey, but it's not on overdrive.
To be clear, you didn't do that, right? It wasn't you doing it.
No, I don't know how. Otherwise, I would.
I texted Andy last night when I'm trying to put up the post. All we wanted to do was a split screen because it was, again, a scouting reporter, mostly on the two guys they drafted, Maxwell Lewis and Jalen Hood-Schifino. All I wanted to do was just create a picture that was a split screen of the two of them, like an image. I asked Andy, do you know how to do that? He said, no.
Well,
we couldn't figure out. I managed to figure it out, but we are not graphic designers.
Oh, I actually think I could have figured out if I tried. I didn't feel like trying. That's your job. I do the other stuff. This is your job to figure out, not mine.
Give a man a fish, teach a man to fish.
I mean, but then you combine with Draymond specifically, who is one of the higher profile free agents out there. Once the Warriors moved Jordan Poole in what was, I think Chris Paul is somebody that can help the Warriors and help their second unit and stuff like that. Like, I think he makes some sense for Golden State, but let's not get this twisted in any way, shape, or fashion. The primary reason they did this was to move Jordan Poole's money. Jordan Poole, who also happens to be the guy that Draymond punched, and it's grown clear the tension between them lingers and gets in the way of the winning. That is very
and also, by the way, had a really bad playoff.
Right. Well, I don't think they are unrelated matters. Like, this was in many ways a move to ensure you keep Draymond Green. Does it guarantee it? No. But stuff like that decreases the Lakers' relative presence in all of these rumors. Yeah. They'll never go away because of the Lakers, but relatively speaking, you are correct, Brian. It's been a soft offseason for Laker rumors.
You mentioned that trade, the Jordan Poole trade, and it's funny, like the Lakers in a lot of ways were very fortunate to get out ahead on the Westbrook thing, because the trades that have happened so far, the draft day trades, was, Davis Bertans being unloaded and into somebody else's cap space, and Bradley Beal was given away from a talent standpoint, was given away.
John Collins by Atlanta today.
John Collins, I was getting there today. Atlanta on Monday afternoon dealt John Collins to Utah, which is an interesting pickup for them with Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen, essentially to clear the money off their books. And everyone
really
is doing
love
this.
Rudy Gay or that second round pick. I'd say it's all the reason they did it.
Again, essentially, if you boil it down. But what's happening is the new CBA is really changing the way that teams approach this stuff. And all of that actually has, as we sort of turn our attention back to the Lakers, obviously big deal for guys signed to big contracts and all that kind of stuff, but for players who are entering the market, and particularly we'll talk in this episode, as you can see here, about Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves and Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba. The Lakers have decisions to make on those guys to guarantee their contracts through the end. That's really the end of the week that comes up. All of these things impact the market and people's willingness to spend. And to that end, Andy, there was a free agents, a player that was taken off the market over the weekend that is directly relevant to this conversation. We'll explain it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors, and for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, and it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and then look for the green check to know that the part will fit, or you get your money back. And just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you will be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
All right. So over the weekend, Naz Reid, who was a player that many Lakers fans, Minnesota center Naz Reid, who was a player many Lakers fans hoped the Lakers might be able to take a run at, unrealistically, really. But we all have hopes and dreams. He was signed to a 3-year, $42 million extension by the Wolves. He will not be a free agent this offseason. The move is significant from a financial standpoint because it is a couple million. It's about $14 million a year. It's about a couple million more than what the expected number is for the full mid-level exception. So Minnesota essentially gives him a little bit more than what most teams would probably be able to make their starting offer for a guy like Naz Reid. And that was enough to keep him from testing the market.
Yeah, Reid was unrealistic for the Lakers unless they were going to clear the decks of everybody other than Austin Reeves' cap hold with the hope of making Naz Reid one of their premier free agent gets. Like, it was otherwise impossible for the Lakers. Like, they could not have made the offer to match what Minnesota did. So for all intents and purposes, again, I get why Laker fans wanted Naz Reid. He's a quality player and he has a habit of kicking the Lakers' ass, so I get it. But he was never really a realistic option to begin with.
So what stuck out to me, though, in terms of why this is relevant, I mean, it's one of these signings, now all of a sudden, the idea that the Wolves have a lot of money, like 2/3 of their cap tied up in centers, odd thing in this league. Maybe they're going to trade Karl-Anthony Towns. They will maybe try to trade Rudy Gobert. Good luck with that. And we'll see how that goes. But for the Lakers standpoint, this to me was one of those deals that you look at and say, I wonder how that impacts the market for Rui Hachimura. Because if the Wolves thought that the full mid-level was kind of where Naz Reid would be, and he's a player gets a lot of respect around the league, young player, up and coming, in some ways has similarities to Hachimura. You could even argue he's been more productive than Hachimura, when given a chance to play. If that's the market for Reid, then you probably wonder if that sort of full mid-level is where a lot of teams would start with Hachimura. And if that's the case, that's great news for the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The full mid-level being a starting point for Rui is basically what I expected anyway. Like, I would have been stunned if the Lakers could have gotten him to something yearly for less than $12 million.
Oh, sure. Anyway. But I'm thinking more, not less.
Well, I think it is going to be more, but the idea of like significantly more, I would be surprised if Rui cost more than 17 or 18 per year. I'd be very surprised by that. I also don't think Reid and Rui are necessarily a great comp in terms of reading all this, in part because, like you talked about before, there's a certain amount of flexibility and like sort of pragmatic covering your bases that goes with retaining Reid for Minnesota. Like, part of retaining Reid is it gives you the ability to try to get off either Cat or Gobert in a way that retaining Rui wouldn't be the same for the Lakers. They'd be retaining Rui because they want Rui. Right. But the other thing, though, is I actually think Naz Reid is somebody that around the league has had more respect for his potential than Rui. Like, Reid has been seen as a guy that if you gave him a larger opportunity, it's felt like he could do more. I mean, I don't know necessarily what his ceiling is, but I think he's always been seen as somebody that, wow, in limited minutes, that guy produces pretty regularly, He's shown a lot of flashes. You wonder what would happen if he played regularly 25 minutes a game. Rui, if anything, has been the guy that's, I think, around the league seen as somebody who's been given a lot of opportunity and hasn't made good on it. Like
I agree.
The 2 to 3 months that he played with the Lakers, where he was very, very good, I think around the league, teams are wondering if that's the outlier or if that's just Rui finally unlocked and used correctly and out of the mess that has been the Washington Wizards for, I don't know how long, however long you want to say they've been a mess. But I don't actually see them as comparable in that sense. If anything, I think there's more skepticism about Rui than Reid, which I think Reid, there would have been more of a chance of somebody wanting to roll the dice to try to really pry him away from Minnesota than there might be with the Lakers and Rui.
That, if that's again, I think a lot of what you're saying is true. And that's, I mean, look, I have been more. I don't want the Lakers to be paying Rui Hachimura $20 million a year. I don't, I think 18, 20, the expectations for what is sort of your acceptable performance, quality performance is a lot different at, where Hachimura was this year versus where Hachimura would be at 19 million a year. And I think there is a larger, I have not seen enough to be fully convinced that like, this is a guy who is like ascending. But I love the way he fits with LeBron or whatever. And I don't think the Lakers should let him get away. But what you're talking about, though, is even more good news for the Lakers. And like you look around, I think so much of this is instructive. Like you look around the teams that had money to spend, it's like Houston. Is Houston going to give Rui Hachimura? I mean, they could, I guess. I mean, he's
young enough to theoretically fit into a rebuild.
They have so many bodies in Houston right now. Were I in charge there, I would be more focused on sorting out what I had before I start adding more players to them.
Or adding I don't think James Harden is a good idea for Houston on a multitude of different levels, but if you add James Harden, you're at least setting up a pecking order. Like there's a clear hierarchy that doesn't come from adding Rui Hachimura to that mix.
Right. And they just drafted Cam Whitmore. It's like they've got so many bodies in Houston, all of whom are kind of in the same place. And Hachimura doesn't add clarity to any of that.
Yeah.
The Spurs, is that where they want to, as they rebuild around Wembanyama? Like, it doesn't seem like that's what they're interested in either. And most of the contending teams where you could, like you say, slot him in a pecking order that makes a lot of sense. Most of those guys, those teams don't have the money to go out and spend on Hachimura beyond a mid-level, either a taxpayer mid-level or a full mid-level if they happen to be one of the teams that has it. So, I mean, I'm starting to get cautiously optimistic that, that Hachimura could land not necessarily between, I thought 15, I thought 20 was a stretch as that number started to get tossed around in the playoffs, when he was shooting 900% from 3-point range versus, it should be noted, like low 30s in the regular season for his career. If that sort of 13 to 15 figure seems pretty good. The Lakers do kind of the same thing, go a little above a mid-level, give him 3 years and, with some sort of option or buyout, available in there somewhere. And the difference for the Lakers between 13 million a year and 16 million a year for Hachimura is massive in terms of what else they can do around the roster.
Yeah, it affects their ability to have a taxpayer mid-level exception versus non-taxpayer, however close it takes them to luxury tax. All of the concerns Laker fans have about
a little more flexibility with Austin Reeves, which is everything.
Like how much concern Laker fans have about the degree to which money will affect their ability to create a great roster, like the willingness to spend. Will it get in the way of, say, retaining Lonnie Walker as a 4th or a 5th guard, something like that? These dollars all add up. I'll call my shot right now. I think D'Lo and Rui will both be back with the Lakers making basically the same salary annually. I think they will both make around 15 a year.
They're going to split it. Like the Morrises, they used to have like joint bank accounts.
If that makes them happy, go for it.
If they can do it.
But I actually, I recently heard a podcast with somebody talking about D'Lo and wanting to make $30 million a year. Or, are the Lakers going to be comfortable with that? I'm like, there is no world in which he's going to make 30. Like his contract could be worth $30 million. The one that's coming up, he's not going to make 30. This is not a thing. Like this is not,
the Lakers would not be comfortable with that, which is okay because it's not going to happen.
Right. This is not a thing. Like honestly, I would be surprised at this point if D'Lo made 20 a year. I'd be surprised.
I don't think he'll get there. I don't think the Lakers want to put him in a position where he's playing for NBA version of resentful money, or open it up to where, I'll just take somebody else's mid-level and, full mid-level from somewhere else, get out of this fast. Like the Lakers, have an interest in making his contract appealing, but I do think that gets them in under 20, which is another great thing because these, if the Lakers are paying D'Lo $36 million for 2 years guaranteed with a third year on there, $20 million partially guaranteed, it again changes the perception. It changes everything about kind of the way people think about guys and what they're expected of, what is expected of them.
I think they'll both make about 15 to 17 a year.
I think Russell may end up making a little bit more, but he's
more established than Rui. That makes sense.
He should make a little bit more. I think the market forces this offseason in a down year for free agents where teams, other than the ones that kind of have to spend money, I think you're going to see, if you want a player, you're going to look for somebody else and you can absorb it. Somebody else's expensive player that you're willing to take, because the premium on that talent is low. I mean, John Collins is not a perfect player. He's better than Rudy Gay in a second round pick. I mean, he's better than that. And, I think if you take him out of the mess that has been the Hawks and put him in a much more structured environment, like they had him in a better team and all that in Utah, with the direction they're going, I feel like that is potentially good for him. I know we have Reeves next on our rundown on the YouTube board, but the Reid thing is relevant also for another Laker and the center market, and this is a big week for that. So we'll skip to Mo Bamba and talk about the impact of Naz Reid on the Lakers and Mo Bamba next. All right. So, Andy, you've noticed the center market is woefully thin. There are guys, like Brook Lopez, great player. Lakers can't afford him by any stretch. I think it is almost a fait accompli. He ends up back in Milwaukee where they need him. He's happy. He's just, they really can't afford to let him go.
No, if you got to choose between him and Middleton, who's also a free agent, I think you take Lopez.
I agree. I think you take Lopez. And so they have that to think about. Naz Reid was one of the more well-regarded free agent centers, potential free agent centers. There really isn't much else left on the market. And the Lakers need bigs. They need at least one more, even if they keep Mo Bamba. But how does not that the Reid was ever really going to be an option for the Lakers, but how does the fact that he's already off the market, that the Wolves were afraid, clearly afraid of somebody giving him a contract that they didn't want to mess around with at the very least. What do you think this does to the decision-making process around Mo Bamba? The Lakers have to decide whether or not to guarantee his deal by the end of the week.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it until you just brought it up now in terms of a correlation. I had been thinking about it more just in terms of the deadline the Lakers have on both Bamba and Beasley and making a decision on them if they are unable to find.
Because if you let Bamba go, you decide you got to replace him.
Right. If I have to choose between Beasley or Bamba, like just in terms, for whatever reason, whether it's economics, whether it's flexibility, whether fit, I would keep Bamba before I would keep Beasley, because I think it is harder to find Mo Bamba than it is to find Malik Beasley. I say this acknowledging that Malik Beasley is a more established player than Bamba, and his career has been, I think, steadier and more consistent. But I think Bamba, just the things that he has been able to do on an even inconsistent level at his size, and also the need for this roster, I think it is going to be more difficult to duplicate that than it is to find somebody who can shoot around the league. And especially if it's just a guy that all he can do is shoot, fine. That's all Malik Beasley can do is shoot. So if I have to choose between one or the other, or if it seems like there's more of an urgency dictating keeping one versus the other, I would keep Bamba before I'd keep Beasley.
Yeah, and when you look, and I think the other thing that factors into that and why the Lakers, I think if of the two, I think I would be very surprised if the Lakers picked up Beasley's option unless they really thought they could trade him quickly, had something in mind there. I'd be surprised if they picked up his option at 16, almost 17 million. I think that like they'd be more likely to turn that down. I don't think that necessarily means he's gone. I think they'd like to sign him for a lower number. And nobody is giving Malik Beasley $17 million this offseason. That is not a thing that is going to happen. D'Lo is more likely to get his 30, than Beasley. Maybe not, but you understand what I'm getting. Both are unlikely.
It's a very interesting poll question.
Beasley, if you think that D'Lo's play against the Nuggets hurt his market value, how about getting basically benched during the playoffs? That's what happened to Beasley. So,
and he didn't play very well in the regular season either with the Lakers.
He was terrible with the Lakers. I mean, it didn't work. I would love to see him come back at 12, 10, 12, something like that. Some number in there where the Lakers have a little, because I don't think he is a bad player, and his skill set, that high volume 3-point shooting, has a lot of value. And again, even if it's just in 82 games, and he's a guy that struggling to play him in the playoffs, Lakers need depth to get through the regular season, and they need that skill set. And if they let Beasley go, they need to find it somewhere else. And if they let Beasley go, they certainly can't let D'Lo go, because there just isn't that level of shooting left on the market. But Mo Bamba, you talk about supply and demand, he's ranked seventh on John Hollinger's list of free agent centers. You can take that for what it's worth, but one is Porzingis. He's not going to be an option. Two is Jakob Poeltl, and even if he leaves Toronto, is not coming to LA. Christian Wood in Dallas, I suspect, is probably going to be there, or again, not.
I don't think he's going to be in Dallas, but I don't particularly want Christian Wood.
No. Brooke Lopez is 4. We just talked about that. Dwight Powell,
love to have him. Not going to happen.
Right. Dwight Powell. Okay, you could have a conversation. Maybe he's somebody you could bring in, stuff like that. But you're into the, Mason Plumlees, who I don't think the Clippers are going to let go because they have no way to replace him.
He played well for them.
He did. Bamba is like a pretty good name in this market. And if you let him, if you turn down the option, you are now risking, letting him go. I think, we didn't see how well that works with Anthony Davis, but he is probably a more credible option than anything else they would replace him with. And they still probably need to troll this, the bottom sort of level of guys who might or might not be available for another body anyway. So now you put yourself in a position where you need 2 dudes, and $10 million for your backup center could be traded, later. I don't think that's a crazy number. I think they pick that up because where do you find another guy?
Right. Unless a trade comes up in the next 48 hours or something, something like that. But again, if I had to choose, I guess the most perfect world, you could even bring back Beasley on his current contract, just because then you have the most amount of money that you could bundle in a trade package. But again, if I had to prioritize,
or bring both of them back for less, but it just, you do start to flirt with losing guys, because realistically, if you let him go, if you bring him back, it's going to be for 7. 7.5, 8. Like he's going to be worth. I don't think he's going to be somebody's mini mid-level. Maybe he would be, but I think there are enough teams that need centers and would take a crack at a still a young player that I feel like if you turn that down for $10 million, there's a good chance he walks.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if you had to prioritize between one or the other, who would you take before
Bamba? They need a big.
Yeah,
they need the big more. All right, so we'll talk Reeves on Wednesday or certainly through the week. We've got a couple other things that we want to set up. As Andy mentioned, we're going to get Jacob Root on to talk. The summer league team is starting to take shape. And we'll keep an eye on the rumor mill. Every time one of these trades happens, it changes the landscape just a little bit. So this Collins to Utah thing matters. All of these deals matter. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. Also, leave us questions, leave us comments. We'd love to weave your stuff into the show. So don't just leave comments on the YouTube page. Actually, hey, Andy, Brian, answer this for me. And then also too, you can do that on the iTunes page where you can,
along with a 5-star review.
Yes, please. We haven't been pumping that much. You got to start doing that again. That's one of the great carryovers from the Anthony Irwin era. Nobody pumps the iTunes page better than Anthony, so we got to copy that. And we will see everybody on Wednesday.